At first glance, you notice something different. 4 people, 1 family, and faces that carry a story most of us have never heard. But here's what's interesting. This isn't a tragedy. It isn't something that happened to them. It's simply who they are. And when you understand why they look the way they do, you'll never see the word normal quite the same way again. What if I told you they all share a rare genetic condition, one that quietly reshapes the structure of the face before a person is even born? Stay with me, because this story goes much deeper than what you see on the surface. Before we get into who this family is, I want you to sit with a few questions. Is this condition something you're born with, or does it develop over time? Is it passed down from parent to child, or can it appear completely out of nowhere? Does it affect only the face, or does it go deeper than that? And perhaps the most important question of all, what is it actually like to live inside a body that the world stops to stare at? We're going to answer every single one of those questions. But first, let's talk about the condition itself, because understanding it is everything. The condition is called Treacher Collins Syndrome. It's rare. It affects roughly 1 in 50,000 people worldwide. And in this family, the Manurung family from Indonesia, multiple members were born with it. So, what exactly is Treacher Collins? At its core, it's a condition that affects the development of bones and tissues in the face, specifically the cheekbones, the jaw, the ears, and sometimes the eyelids. People with Treacher Collins may have underdeveloped cheekbones, a smaller lower jaw, downward slanting eyes, and ears that are smaller than usual or partially formed. In some cases, hearing is affected because the ear canal itself may not have fully developed. But here's something that gets overlooked almost every time this condition is discussed. It does not affect intelligence. People with Treacher Collins have completely typical brain development. They think, learn, feel, and experience life the same way you and I do. The difference is entirely structural and entirely visible, which, as you might imagine, comes with its own set of challenges. So, where does this come from? It all starts before birth, in the earliest weeks of pregnancy, when the face is still forming. During fetal development, a specific set of cells called neural crest cells are responsible for building the bones and cartilage of the face. In Treacher Collins, these cells don't migrate or develop properly. The result is that certain facial structures simply don't form the way they're supposed to. The reason this happens comes down to genetics. Treacher Collins is most commonly linked to a mutation in a gene called TCOF1, though mutations in 2 other genes, POLR1C and POLR1D, have also been identified. These genes play a role in producing proteins that are essential for early facial development. Now here's where it gets interesting. This mutation can be inherited, meaning a parent with Treacher Collins can pass it on to their children. And because it follows what's called an autosomal dominant pattern, only 1 copy of the mutated gene is enough to cause the condition. That's why in families like the Manurungs, you can see multiple members affected. It isn't a coincidence. It's genetics playing out exactly as it's written. But, and this is important, in roughly 40 to 60% of cases, the mutation appears spontaneously. No family history, no inherited gene. It simply happens during the formation of the embryo, so it can come from nowhere. Or it can run in a family for generations. Both are possible. Both are real. The Manurung family became widely known after videos of their daily life began circulating on social media. And what struck people, what kept people watching, wasn't the condition itself. It was the warmth. You watch them interact, and what you see is a family that has clearly built something strong together. There's laughter, there's routine, there's love in the very ordinary sense of the word, the kind that shows up in small moments, not grand gestures. The parents navigate a world that often stares. The children grow up knowing that their faces will draw attention wherever they go. And yet, they're present. They show up. They document their lives openly and without apology. In interviews and social media posts, family members have spoken about what it means to live visibly. to be seen by millions of strangers who have very little context for who you actually are. Some of those strangers are curious, some are kind, and some, inevitably, are cruel. But what becomes clear, the more you pay attention, is that this family has developed something a lot of people spend their whole lives searching for: a sense of self that doesn't depend on how the world responds to them. They're followed by millions of people online now, not because they went looking for fame, but because their story resonated, because something about watching a family choose joy in circumstances that many would find devastating makes people stop and reconsider things. What does it mean to look normal? And why does it matter so much to us? It would be dishonest to tell this story without talking about the difficulties, because they're real and they deserve acknowledgement. People with Treacher Collins can face significant medical challenges depending on the severity of their case. Hearing loss is common, and for children, this can have a direct impact on speech development and learning if it isn't identified and addressed early. Hearing aids or surgical interventions may be needed. In more severe cases, the underdevelopment of the jaw can make breathing difficult, particularly during sleep. Some individuals require airway support as newborns or young children. There are also surgeries that can reconstruct parts of the face, procedures that rebuild the cheekbones, reshape the jaw, or reconstruct the ears. These surgeries are often done in stages across many years of childhood and adolescence. They are not simple, they are not without risk, and they are not available equally to everyone around the world. For the Manurung family, access to care and the specifics of any treatment they've pursued are not fully public. What is clear is that they live in Indonesia, a country where specialist care for rare conditions can be difficult to access outside major cities. And then there's the social dimension, which, for many people with visible differences, is the hardest part of all: being stared at in public, having people pull out their phones, navigating a world that was not designed with your face in mind, not in terms of representation, not in terms of assumption, not even in terms of something as basic as being treated with ordinary dignity in a grocery store. These aren't abstract challenges, they're Tuesday afternoons. There's a tendency, when we encounter stories like this one, to reach for easy conclusions, to say, they're an inspiration, to wrap it up neatly, to turn a family's life into a lesson designed for someone else's consumption. But I think the Manurung family deserves more than that. What their story actually does, if you let it, is create a small moment of friction, a pause, a question. When we talk about what people look like, what we mean by normal, what we decide is worth staring at, whose comfort are we actually protecting? Treacher Collins doesn't change who a person is on the inside. It changes the architecture of the face. And somewhere along the way, we decided that the architecture is what matters most. Maybe that's worth examining. The Manurungs didn't set out to challenge anyone's assumptions. They set out to live, openly, honestly, and together. The fact that millions of people found that compelling says something. Not about them, about us. If you want to keep exploring stories like this one, rare conditions, medical mysteries, and the humans living inside them, subscribe. There's a lot more where this came from, and I want to hear from you. Had you heard of Treacher Collins Syndrome before watching this? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one.